So hello everybody. In this video I'm going to talk about how we go from despair to hope. I'm going to share 4 strategies for navigating despair and feelings of failure. And I'm going to share my #1 strategy for cultivating hope. So if you're watching live, do say hello in the chat. If you're watching the replay, just put #replay. Feel free to let me know where you are in the world. And do let me know if this topic resonates with you. So, how do you respond to feelings of despair and failure? Do you judge yourself? Do you say to yourself, I shouldn't feel this way? Do you generate feelings of resistance? Inez says hello. Hello, Inez. Nice to have you join me again. I think that's at least 3 weeks running. And Anna says hello, or live. It's nice to have you with us, Anna. So consider that resistance results in stress. When we resist what is, we lose, but only 100% of the time, according to Byron Katie. When we're experiencing stress, this slows down our healing. Okay, so if you don't know me, my name's Simon Pimenta. I had fibromyalgia and MECFS for 8-9 years. At one point I couldn't walk for 1 minute. I got back to work, living my life, and I now share lots of resources, videos and other free content, PDFs, etc. to help you move towards your goals. So if you do find this video helpful, do leave a comment, leave a like, do share. It'll help other people see this video. So, as I say, I'm going to share some strategies for dealing with despair and feelings of failure. The first strategy is get radical. So in the last week, I've seen about 3 posts talking about being radical, radical acceptance, radical forgiveness, radical self-love, radical responsibility is something I've talked about in the past. So firstly, I invite you to consider that it's important and useful to actually have a radical acceptance towards yourself and your feelings. Okay? So feelings of despair, feelings that we've maybe failed are natural. Okay? But consider this quote by Martin Luther King. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Okay, so I love that quote. So consider that when we are accepting, we are expansive, okay? Resistance is kind of a contracting experience. Acceptance, allowing our feelings, really allowing yourself to embrace your experience deeply is expansive, and it will help those feelings pass, okay? It can be useful to really acknowledge that there is a part of you that's feeling despair, a part of you that's feeling feelings of failure, okay? It's not the whole of you, because there is another part of you that is wise, okay? That has the capacity to accept that part of you that's feeling upset, okay? In the same way that a parent would take care of a child who's feeling upset in an ideal world, okay? So this act of recognizing that we have these parts of us, allowing yourself to bear witness to that part of you that's feeling upset, it's like you're walking alongside that part of you, okay? So, as I say, it's okay to allow those feelings. We don't want to live there, but we do want to acknowledge and make space for those feelings. This is an act, if you like, of self-mothering, okay? It's important to have radical forgiveness. If you've slipped up, you know, if there are times when I took a step back rather than a step forward because I did it, I didn't listen to my body, I wasn't taking care of myself, okay? Important that we forgive ourselves for that. If you notice feelings of guilt, shame, again, make space for those feelings, and recognize that it's important to shift from those feelings. So for example, if you're feeling guilty, reminding yourself you're doing your best, okay? Sometimes I work with people who are parents and they feel guilty that they're not able to spend as much time with their children as they like. But what I will say to them is, it's really important that you acknowledge that you are a really conscientious parent. There may be things that you're not able to do, but it's clear that you care deeply for your children. There are children who do not have that experience from healthy parents, physically healthy parents, okay? So that's the first thing, okay? Get radical. Work on radical acceptance, radical forgiveness, radical self-love, radical responsibility, and we'll come back to that. Second thing is let me just ask you, to what extent do you think you are accepting towards yourself? You are forgiving towards yourself. You are showing yourself self-love. Let me know in the chat, what score would you give yourself out of 10 for those things, with 10 being very accepting, forgiving and self-loving? Feel free to let me know in the chat. Okay, so I see a few people have joined. Feel free to say hello. Nice to have you with us. So step 2 is that it's important to reframe our experience. Okay. Now, whilst it's true we might be experiencing some grief, some sense of loss, okay, it's also useful to think about your experience of chronic illness as a path for growth, okay? So look for those moments where you have shown resilience, self-compassion, where you have grown as a result of this experience. Okay, it's not saying that you have to love this experience, but it's important to acknowledge those things. I know someone who did brain training, and initially they were very optimistic. They maybe overdid it, and from what they were saying, it sounded like they felt that their practitioner had encouraged them to push through, and they experienced a crash. Then they experienced despair, a sense of failure, particularly because some of the other people who'd done that training were doing better than them. So they got into a bit of self-blame, maybe blaming the practitioner, and I wasn't there, I don't know the situation. But it seemed to me that they threw the baby out with the bathwater. There were some useful tools that they learned, and I think it's always really important to take the tools that are useful to you and adapt the tools that you don't feel are so useful. So if someone was telling me when I had ME/CFS, oh, just push through, then I would have ignored them. Okay, so Shirley Ann says, acceptance and self-forgiveness are my weakest, 5 out of 10. So thank you for sharing that, Shirley. It's brave to do that. My question would be to you is, how could you just improve that by 1% tomorrow? Okay, and consider that if you improve by 1% each day, that adds up to a massive amount over the course of a year. I can't remember the exact figure. I think it might be something like you improve 27-fold, okay, if you do that. So yeah, let me know in the chat what's something you could do today, tomorrow, to just improve that by 1%. Okay, so let me know in the chat. Stephen says, hi Simon, when my ME journey began it was 2 to 3, but now with strategies in place I'm at least an 8. However, it can wobble. So again, thank you for sharing that, Stephen. Good to hear that you're making progress. So that's amazing that you've gone from 2, 3 to an 8. And this is part of the reframing, is really embracing that notion. I'll talk more about that in a moment, that we can make change, that we can make progress. Okay. Stephen says, I literally meditate and connect with my loving self, my wise self, and my spiritual self. I do this every morning and evening. So again, thank you for sharing that. That is lovely. And I'd be interested to know from other people, what are your habits? What is the first thing you do in the morning? You know, one of the first things I used to do in the morning was scroll on Facebook for about half an hour. I've stopped doing that. In the main, 95% of the time, I get up, have a drink, and do some exercises. And actually, even before I get up, I spend a little bit of time doing a short relaxation meditation. Okay, so I've changed my morning routine to, and the other thing I've started doing, maybe I'll do a video about this, is I saw a post from Joe Dispenza that I liked, where he talks about reviewing the day, looking at what you might do differently and kind of setting yourself up for the day. So maybe I will make a video on that. If you'd like that, pop the word Joe in the chat, so I know that you're interested in hearing more about his perspective. So consider that if we dwell on the past, we stay stuck. So as I said before, you might feel some sadness, some grief. It's okay to experience that. We don't want to live there. Okay? If we dwell in the past, we stay stuck, and we stay stressed now. Okay? If we worry about the future, we stay stuck, but we get those feelings of stress now. Okay? I'll come to your comment in a moment, Shirley. Yeah. We can't change the past. We can change the way we feel about the past. We can change the way we think about the past. And we can learn from the past. Okay? So another quote that I came across that I like is a quote from J.K. Rowling. Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. If you don't know her story, she talks about the fact that at one point in her life she was at rock bottom. She was on the breadline, sitting in a cafe writing her book because she couldn't afford to pay for the heating. Okay, so Shirley Ann says, I could start viewing myself with empathy as I would others that have illness or disabilities. So perfect. That's really important, isn't it? That often we are good at treating others with kindness, but we don't show ourselves the same kindness. Consider that if you have that value that I should treat people with kindness, you are a person, so you deserve that kindness. And consider, what would your experience be like when you were doing that? You know, I used to be very hard on myself if I made a mistake. And it's truly liberating to be able to make mistakes and not give myself a hard time. Okay. And for instance, doing live sessions like this has been a real training ground for me, because I've made mistakes so many times, like for instance not turning the microphone on and people not being able to hear me. I've done that more than 5 times, so Asa says hello from Sweden. Nice to have you with us, Asa. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Let me know. Okay, so step 3, strategy 3. Even if you are limited in what you can do, engage in small acts of connection, of joy. Okay. Another quote that I came across that I like, from Buddhist monk who's no longer with us, Thich Nhat Hanh. Sometimes your joy is the source of your smile, but sometimes your smile can be the source of your joy. Okay. So you might feel completely ridiculous doing this, but actually smiling can actually bring those good feelings. I remember being in a laughter workshop once where we had to meditate on laughter, and it was in a group. It was with Deepak Chopra. There was about 500 people in the room, and suddenly this woman behind me just started giggling, and it was very infectious, and within about a minute or two the whole room was laughing. It was really a funny experience. Okay, so engage in small acts of connection and joy. What can you do today to bring you a little bit of joy? one of the things that I did when I had MECFS was just to play the guitar for a bit, and sometimes just hearing a few nice chords just kind of gave me warm feelings inside. Now, you may notice that behind me is a piano, and that's something I do. I'm learning, I'm very much a beginner, but I suddenly sometimes play a chord and think, oh, that just sounds lovely, and it brings me great joy. All right, so find those sources of joy. Okay. Strategy 4, we need to shift from trying to control everything, okay, and notice my fist is clenched, to a sense of trust, and that's more expansive. We need to let go of the need to control everything, every aspect of your healing, because actually sometimes we're trying too hard, and instead we need to learn to trust the wisdom of your body. Okay, I've talked about this before, but I remember one client who was trying really hard, when he had symptoms, he's saying, oh, I'm going to do some NLP on that. And actually, going back to my first point, what would it be like? What would it be like if you just allowed that sensation you're experiencing and actually tuned into it and explored the message? And he was like, oh, wow, that's a very different approach. Okay. And that's something I teach people when people do the mind-body reconnect, which is something I've trained in. It's all about learning to listen to what's going on and making sense of that. And it's really fascinating. I had one experience where I was sharing this approach with a friend, and she said, oh, actually, I noticed I've got this feeling in my back. Again, I've talked about this before, tension in my lower back. And when she tuned into it, she realised she was feeling frustrated and upset. And she hadn't been aware of those feelings. And once she was aware of those feelings, she had a better understanding of what she needed to do. Okay, so I want to share, again, let's pause a moment and ask you that question. Where, if we had a spectrum of 0 being kind of very controlling, 10 being having a deep sense of trust in your body, a deep sense of trust in yourself, in a deep sense of trust in your capacity to connect to that part of you that is wise, that is always there, by the way, it's like the blue sky. What number would you be on that scale? 0 to 10 currently. There's no shame wherever you are, okay? If you feel brave enough to share in the chat, do. You can let me know privately if you wish. But just acknowledge where you are. I can honestly say that at one point I was very much in control and fear, okay? And I'm learning to have more a sense of trust. That's something that has evolved, and I'm much less anxious. There have been some situations where someone's been behaving badly, and in the past I would have felt like I needed to control that and make sure my response was correct, and that I managed to address what was going on. Now I'm much more relaxed, and I share what I feel, and I'm not too worried about getting it wrong, if you like. Okay, so it's important to let go of needing to be in control, which is quite a tight experience, and having more sense of trust. So let me know in the chat what number you are, if you're brave enough to do so. I want to share another little quote with you, which is, your body is not a problem to be solved. It's a conversation to be listened to. So that's the notion that your body is communicating to you, is wanting you to pay attention. Your emotional brain doesn't communicate in words. It communicates via sensations, symptoms, and emotions. Okay? And that is a call for us to listen, process, and take action. So, I want to share my number one strategy for cultivating hope. Consider if we have no agency, no sense that we can influence things, then that is going to generate feelings of helplessness, hopelessness. If we have that sense that we do have agency, we do have influence, that gives us a sense of hope. So how do we do that? Well, there's three parts to that. So number one is bringing curiosity rather than judgment to the situation. So, someone posted on my YouTube channel recently, I've been doing all these things that you talk about, but I'm still not where I want to be. So I do feel despair and feeling like I'm a failure at times. So there's some judgment going on there. I encourage you to bring curiosity to that experience and explore, well, how is it that I generate those feelings? What am I saying to myself that means I'm feeling a sense of failure? Okay. Now, I completely understand if someone's been ill for a long time. That's a challenge. That's frustrating. But I can tell you about someone who has spent a long time struggling with certain issues, okay, and they still bring more self-compassion to the table, okay, and they didn't do that in the past, okay. So we want to be curious, we want to be compassionate towards ourselves, and we want to take inspired, constructive action. So what I advocate, and this is something I do with clients when I'm working with, and it's been very rare that I talk to someone where this doesn't apply, okay? We need to explore what are the things that are in your sphere of influence that can make a difference. We do this by identifying the gap between where you are right now and where you want to be. So let's say someone's health score is 3 out of 10. Actually, I remember working with someone when she first came across my YouTube channel. She said my health score was 1 out of 10. And I started watching your videos. I started applying what you were teaching and I made improvements. And she, after quite a long time, decided to do some work with me. She booked 3 sessions. And she said, I asked her, what score were you to begin with? She said I was 1 out of 10. What score were you when you said you'd made improvements from watching these videos? She said, well, I was about 3 or 4 out of 10. And I was surprised because I thought she was going to give me a higher number. But we had 3 sessions and a couple of months later she said, I'm like a 7 out of 10 now. And the last I heard from her, she said she was going to work part-time, okay? So we need to identify that gap between where we are now and where we want to be. We need to know where we are, okay? Then we need to identify the gap between what we know and what we're doing. So for example, when I had ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, I knew that it was useful to listen to my body. I knew it's useful to take breaks if I was doing an activity and started noticing that my energy was dipping. As I learned more about energy and health, I realised sometimes I needed to take a break, sometimes I needed to do something different, sometimes I needed to tune into what was going on emotionally, okay? So I knew I needed to do these things. I knew I needed to manage my time, and there are times even now that when I'm really good at that, and sometimes when I'm less good at that, when I end up rushing because I haven't allowed enough time, or I was doing something and I needed to stop doing that thing and go and get ready for an appointment or leaving the house to go out to catch a train, etc. Okay. This person who made the comment about feeling sometimes despair and failure, recognised by watching one of my videos, I talked about doing things in a rush. And she said, oh, actually, I recognise that I do that. And so she realised that that was an opportunity to change her experience. by, and I think I was talking about this last week, by not rushing. Your body is going to have a very different physiological experience, okay? And that's going to impact your body's capacity to heal. I knew there were times, when I had ME/CFS, I knew it was important to have fun and connection, but sometimes I got so over-focused on doing recovery that I didn't make time for those fun things, the connection. And then it's like part of me rebelled, saying, look, you're not letting me have enough fun, so I'm going to have loads of fun now. So it was like denying myself cake and then eating the whole cake, all right? I knew it was useful to do movement, but I didn't always do those things that I knew were useful to do. So let me know in the chat, which of those things do you recognize? Oh yeah, I know I should go to bed earlier. I know I should do X, Y, or Z, but I don't always do it. Okay. I know there was definitely a gap between what I knew and what I was doing. Okay. And the more that I closed that gap, and I'm still working on it, it's a work in progress. At one point I was routinely going to bed late, past midnight. And now I'm really working on getting to bed earlier, because I know that when I do that, I feel so much better for it. And I actually love waking up early and getting up early, going to the park when it's still very quiet. So that suits me better. Okay, so you have to find your own idiosyncratic approach that's going to work for you. So do let me know in the chat which are the things that you could be doing, but if you put your hand on your heart, you recognise, yeah, I'm not doing that. I could do that without judgment, without beating myself up. I know I could do a bit better in that area. And as I said earlier, aim for just making a 1% improvement each day. Okay, you don't have to go from a 2 to a 3 to a 4 in one day. You could just take those small steps. So I hope that's given you food for thought. Just to let you know, I am delivering a free mini course. Each Monday, my goal is to release a little video, which is the next step. I've released 2 videos already, so check out my YouTube channel for those videos. Actually, I'll probably put them in a playlist. I'll maybe call that playlist Recovery Mini Course. Or I'll think about the name. Anyway, I will create a playlist. I'll let you know. Release those videos on a Monday. So do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out the playlists. I've created playlists on lots of different topics. Okay, I've created loads of free content. Some of the videos on my YouTube channel has links where you can download free resources. If any of the links don't work, let me know. I'll fix them. So I release a lot of free content. I'm not wanting people to be clients. I'm not desperate to have people a client. If I can help you and we never work together, I will be happy with that. Do join my Facebook group if you'd like more support, ideas, inspiration. Do follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I do tend to post a bit more on TikTok. If you do want help now, I am going to be starting a new Building Resilience group course soon. If you'd like more information about that, pop the word group in the chat. I'll send you the information. And I also work with people one-to-one. I have a few slots for one-to-one. So if you'd like more information about that, happy to have a chat with you. So pop the word chat, get in touch, and happy to talk to you more about the options, either the group course or one-to-one. So do let me know your takeaway. Do let me know what action you're going to take. And as I say, I'm always open to feedback. Let me know what you thought about this video. If you say that was complete rubbish, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. If you like it, do share and leave a comment. So dare to dream big. Keep going. You got this. Wishing you great health. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me. It's nice having people interact. And see you in the next video. Bye for now.